The Afghan mountains stood sentinel, their rugged peaks and valleys shrouded in the early morning mist. These ancient formations, carved by time and weather, were both beautiful and treacherous. They had witnessed countless battles and harbored many secrets within their rocky embrace. Jagged peaks clawed at the sky, their sharp ridges silhouetted against the dawn. The mountains seemed almost alive, as if they were watching, waiting. The air was thin and cold, a reminder of the harsh environment that surrounded them. Below, a 13-man Delta Force team moved like ghosts, their movements precise and silent. They were trained for this, to blend into the environment, to become one with the shadows. Each step was calculated, every breath controlled. Their mission was clear: capture Dr. Zia, a rogue scientist who had gone off the grid. The briefing had been thorough, every detail scrutinized. They knew the risks, but they also knew the importance of their objective. Dr. Zia was no ordinary scientist. He was building a weapon, a toxin that could kill thousands if released. His work was dangerous, and his intentions were unclear. But one thing was certain: he had to be stopped. The team was led by Captain Miller, a seasoned veteran with years of experience in the field. He was a man of few words, but his presence commanded respect. He had led countless raids, each one more dangerous than the last. A veteran of countless raids, he knew the risks. He had seen the cost of failure, and he was determined not to let that happen again. His team trusted him implicitly, knowing that he would lead them through whatever dangers lay ahead. This valley was their best shot, Intel suggested. The information had been gathered from various sources, each piece fitting together like a puzzle. They had to trust their intel, even though the terrain was unforgiving and the enemy elusive. Zia's lab was hidden somewhere amongst the rocks and ice, a secret facility that was well protected and difficult to reach. The team knew they had to be careful. Every move could be their last. They moved in the shadows, weapons ready, their senses heightened. The night was their ally, providing cover as they advanced. Each man was a master of stealth, trained to move without a sound. Each man was a whisper in the wind, their presence barely detectable. They communicated with hand signals, their eyes scanning the surroundings for any sign of danger. The mission required absolute silence and precision. Their night vision goggles painted the world green, allowing them to see in the darkness. The technology was advanced, but it was their training and discipline that made them effective. They moved as one, a cohesive unit. The cold air stung their lungs, each breath a reminder of the harsh conditions. But they were prepared for this, their gear designed to withstand the freezing temperatures. They pressed on, undeterred by the elements. They were predators, hunting dangerous prey. Their training had prepared them for this moment, and they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The stakes were high, but they were determined to succeed. Their objective was clear: find Zia. The mission was critical, and failure was not an option. They moved with purpose, their eyes focused on the task at hand. Neutralize the threat, get out unseen. The plan was simple, but execution required skill and precision. They had trained for this, and they were ready to put their training to the test. But the mountains held secrets, ancient and deadly. The terrain was unpredictable, and danger lurked around every corner. They had to stay alert, their senses sharp. They were about to learn the hard way. The mission was far from over, and the challenges they faced were just beginning. But they were ready, and they would not back down. The hunt for Dr. Zia had begun. The first sign of trouble was the radio static. Then came the screams. Gunfire erupted from the rear of the column. Two figures impossibly fast darted through the snow. Contact, contact, Miller roared into his comms. 12 o'clock. The Delta operators reacted instantly. Years of training kicked in. They returned fire, but the figures were too quick. They moved like blurs, dodging bullets with ease. Two men went down, Sergeant Evans and Corporal Lee. Their screams cut short. The attackers were on them in a flash. Savage, guttural growls filled the air. This was no ordinary enemy. Hundreds of miles away, a 16-man SEAL team prepared for their own mission. Operation Iron Fist was a go. They were to destroy a Taliban training camp. Lieutenant Commander Jackson briefed his men. We hit them hard and fast. No survivors. They were the tip of the spear, backed by a 40-man Ranger element. Their insertion point was 20 clicks south of the camp. The Rangers would follow, securing the perimeter. Inside the Chinook, the roar of the engines was deafening. Jackson checked his watch, his face grim. They were about to unleash hell. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. The radio crackled to life, a frantic voice barely audible over the static. Mayday, Mayday, this is Delta 1 Actual. We are under attack. Unknown hostiles, heavy casualties. Requesting immediate... The transmission cut out. Silence. Jackson and his men exchanged glances. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. Delta Force didn't just call for help, not unless... Command, this is Echo 1-1. We heard the distress call, requesting permission to divert and assist Delta 1 Actual. The reply was immediate. Negative, Echo 1-1. Your mission is critical. We are sending reinforcements to Delta's location. Jackson slammed his fist on the table. Those are our brothers out there. We can't just leave them to die. Section 5. A desperate plea. The remaining Delta operators were outmatched. They were fighting for their lives against creatures that defied explanation. Tall, skeletal figures with glowing red eyes. They moved with unnatural speed and ferocity. Miller was bleeding from a dozen cuts. His M4 was empty. He drew his pistol, firing 2 quick shots. One found its mark, but the creature shrugged it off. They were relentless, driven by a primal rage. He switched frequencies on his radio. Echo 1-1, this is Delta 1 Actual. If you can hear me, we need immediate support. These things, they're not human. His words were met with static. He was losing hope. They were surrounded, outnumbered, outgunned. Was this the end? Section 6. Into the firestorm. Jackson disobeyed the order. He couldn't abandon his brothers in arms. The weight of his decision bore heavily on his shoulders. But he knew deep down that he couldn't live with himself if he left them behind. The bond forged in the crucible of combat was stronger than any command from above. The Chinook changed course, heading towards Delta's last known location. He knew the risks. He knew the consequences. The icy wind whipped against the helicopter's hull, a stark reminder of the unforgiving environment they were plunging into. The mountains loomed ominously, their peaks shrouded in mist, as if nature itself was warning them of the peril ahead. But some things were more important than orders. They landed a click out, the Rangers fanning out to secure the LZ. The snow crunched under their boots, each step a testament to their resolve. The cold bit at their exposed skin, but their focus remained unbroken. They were here for a mission, and nothing would deter them. The air was thick with tension. The smell of blood and gunpowder hung heavy. Every shadow seemed to hide a potential threat, every sound a possible ambush. The battlefield was a chaotic symphony of destruction, and they were its reluctant performers. The weight of the situation pressed down on them, but they moved with purpose. They moved cautiously, weapons at the ready. "Fan out and find survivors! Move!" Jackson barked. His voice cut through the tension, a beacon of authority in the chaos. The soldiers responded instantly, their training kicking in. They spread out, eyes scanning the terrain for any sign of life or danger. The forest was eerily silent, the only sounds their own movements and the distant echoes of conflict. They found the first casualty quickly, Sergeant Evans, or what was left of him. The sight was a grim reminder of the brutality of war. His body lay twisted and broken, a stark contrast to the vibrant man they had known. The soldiers paused, a moment of silence for their fallen comrade before the mission pulled them back to the present. The sight sent chills down their spines. His body was mangled, torn apart with savage brutality. It was a scene out of a nightmare, and it fueled their determination. They couldn't let Evans's death be in vain. The horror of the scene was a stark reminder of the stakes, and it steeled their resolve. Whatever did this was no man. The realization hit them like a sledgehammer. They were up against something beyond their understanding, something that defied the rules of engagement. The unknown loomed large, but they had a mission to complete. They steeled themselves, ready to face whatever horrors awaited them in the firestorm. Section 7. Whispers of the Fallen. The trail of carnage led them deeper into the mountains, scattered equipment, bloodstains in the snow. The silence was broken only by the crunch of their boots. Then they heard it. Gunfire. Distant but unmistakable. "That's got to be them. Move!" Jackson whispered urgently. They pushed forward, adrenaline pumping through their veins. They rounded a bend in the narrow pass and froze. 3 of the creatures were tearing into a pile of rocks. They could hear the desperate cries of a man coming from within. "Open fire!" Section 8. Unholy Alliance. The SEALs and Rangers unleashed a torrent of fire, their weapons lighting up the night like a deadly fireworks display. The air was thick with the smell of gunpowder and the sound of bullets whizzing past. Each soldier moved with precision, their training evident in every calculated step and every well-aimed shot. The creatures scattered, momentarily surprised by the onslaught. These were not ordinary enemies. Their forms were twisted, almost otherworldly. Their eyes glowed with an eerie light reflecting the chaos around them. For a brief moment, the battlefield was a surreal blend of human and monstrous, a clash of worlds that defied understanding. They moved with incredible agility, dodging bullets as if they were nothing more than snowflakes. Their speed was unnerving, a blur of motion that made them difficult targets. The soldiers had faced many foes, but none like this. Each creature seemed to anticipate the next move, evading with a grace that was almost beautiful in its lethality. "Get to the rocks! Go, go, go!" Jackson yelled, providing cover fire. His voice cut through the chaos, a beacon of command in the midst of the fray. The soldiers responded instantly, their trust in Jackson absolute. They moved as one, a well-oiled machine driven by the need to survive. They fought their way to the pile of rocks, finding 3 Delta operators huddled inside. The relief was palpable, but there was no time to rest. The Delta operators were seasoned veterans, their faces etched with the strain of battle. They had been holding the line, waiting for reinforcements, and now they had arrived. Miller was alive, but barely. He was pale, his breathing shallow. His comrades worked quickly, their hands steady despite the urgency. They knew that every second counted. The wound was severe, and they had to stabilize him before they could move. The bond between soldiers was unspoken but powerful, a brotherhood forged in the crucible of combat. A gaping wound in his side oozed blood. The sight was grim, a stark reminder of the cost of war. Yet there was no room for despair. The soldiers were trained to handle such situations, their minds focused on the task at hand. They applied pressure, bandaged the wound, and prepared to move. Every action was deliberate, a dance of survival in the face of death. "We need to get out of here, now!" Jackson shouted. His voice was urgent, filled with the weight of command. The creatures were regrouping, their eerie eyes watching, waiting. The soldiers knew that staying meant certain death. They had to retreat, to regroup and fight another day. The decision was made in an instant, the urgency of the situation leaving no room for doubt. They grabbed the wounded, retreating back down the pass as fast as they could. The terrain was treacherous, each step a battle against the elements and the enemy. The soldiers moved with determination, their focus unwavering. They carried their wounded comrade with care, each one knowing that they could be next. The bond of brotherhood was their strength, their unity, their shield. The creatures stalked them, shadows dancing at the edge of their vision. The night was alive with danger, every rustle a potential threat. The soldiers were on high alert, their senses heightened by the adrenaline coursing through their veins. They knew that the creatures were relentless, that they would not stop until their prey was caught. The hunt was far from over. The soldiers prepared for the next encounter, their resolve unbroken. They knew that this was just the beginning, that the battle would continue. But they were ready. They were warriors, forged in the fires of conflict, and they would fight until the end. The unholy alliance of man and monster was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, a story of courage in the face of unimaginable odds. Section 9. A new breed of enemy. They made it back to the LZ, the air thick with the smell of cordite and fear. The Chinook lifted off, carrying them away from the nightmare, back to base, back to the world they knew. But nothing would ever be the same. The commanders were in shock. The bodies of the creatures, riddled with bullets, lay sprawled on the tarmac. They were unlike anything they had ever seen. A new enemy had emerged from the shadows. A larger force was being assembled. A new mission authorized. This time they would capture one of the creatures alive. They needed answers. They needed to understand. The fate of the world might depend on it.